Chapter 0011 Tianyuan Fragments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2. Your swordsmanship is pretty good. Baiyu said after watching Qin Chu kill a spotted tiger. Bending down, Qin Chu took out the crystal core of the spotted tiger. Baiyu, what you said is wrong, I am a good person. Baiyu laughed. Maybe others would think Qin Chu was arrogant after hearing this, but Baiyu didn't think so. He felt that Qin Chu was confident. No matter whether he faced a fourth-level violent bear or Liuza, Qin Chu there was no lack of confidence in me at first. After chatting for a while, Qin Chu and Baiyu continued their mission. This time their route was relatively outside, approaching the outskirts of Mian Mountain and moving forward on the outskirts of Mian Mountain. Qin Chu and Baiyu did not dare to enter Mian Mountain. They had learned about the deserted areas outside Tianyuan sect. The outer areas of Mian Mountain were dominated by third-order monsters, and fourth-order monsters rarely appeared. However, inside Mian Mountain it's different. There are more fourth-level monsters, and there are even fifth-level monsters. Now that they have the strength to enter rashly, they are looking for death. He had killed a fourth-level violent bear, but Qin Chu was not arrogant enough to think that he could easily kill a fourth-level monster. He killed a fourth-level violent bear. One was because the violent bear had just broken through, and the other was that he had killed a fourth-level violent bear. The violent bear is slower, so he and Baiyu can kill it. Boss, have you ever thought that if you fought with Liuza that day, she might be cruel? Baiyu said to Qin Chu. Then what should we do? Do we give in? If we give in, life will be so frustrating. We can only fight first and then talk about it. Qin Chu said. In fact, Qin Chu also knew that he might not be able to defeat Yanagisawa, but he didn't want to cower. He could fail, but he couldn't admit defeat without a fight. What he lost was his mentality and dignity. When he was living in the mountains, the old man told him that when faced with monsters, he had to be more ferocious than the monsters to survive. The space in the storage belt was full. Qin Chu used his outer robe to make a cloth bag and carried the mission items on his back. He was quite anxious inside. What he was anxious about was not a skill. He wanted to start doing it as soon as possible. Let Tianyuan sect see that he can do it, so that he can have a chance to see Elder Mo. Boss, I see you have collected some medicinal materials, but they are not required for the mission. Baiyu asked. Those medicinal materials are for my own use. I'll let you try it later. Qin Chu patted Baiyu's shoulder. He thought Baiyu was very good. At least we could share life and death together. He didn't say that he ran away after encountering a powerful monster. Good company. This time Qin Chu and Baiyu ran hundreds of miles away and did not turn around until they could no longer carry the mission items. Qin Chu was a little excited, because he thought that after handing in the task, he should have 30,000 points, which he could exchange for the book he liked. Qin Chu's favorite classic is called Tianyuan Ju. Looking at the introduction, Qin Chu thought it was very impressive, more domineering than some vitality skills with 100,000 points. When Qin Chu and Baiyu returned to the Qingzhou Peak Merit Hall, the Merit Hall was about to close. After walking out of the entrance of the Hall of Merit, Law Enforcement Han went back to help Qin Chu and Baiyu collect their tasks. After handing in the task, Qin Chu's eyes showed disappointment. 29,006, which was 400 points short of 30,000. Take this Shouwu with 500 points first, and you will pay me back 1,000 points within a month. Baiyu took out 1,000-year Shouwu and handed it to Qin Chu. He knew that Qin Chu needed 30,000 points. Qin Chu nodded. He knew that Baiyu said this because he was afraid that he wouldn't accept it, but there was nothing he couldn't accept. They were all friends. With 30,000 points in hand, Qin Chu and Baiyu left the Hall of Merit. Only when you have a strong desire to become stronger can you become stronger. 30,000 points in more than a month. Why are you just a handyman disciple? Watching Qin Chu and Baiyu leave, Han Zhihua muttered. He felt sorry for Qin Chu. He is a handyman disciple, because Qin Chu's speed in gaining points and his toughness are not found in the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak, and even the inner disciples cannot compare with him. Back at the handyman hall, Qin Chu took Baiyu to his wooden house on the edge of the cliff. Is this big tank used to boil water? Bai pointed to the big tank where Qin Chu took a bath. At this time, Qin Chu lit the wood under the vat, and then poured some medicinal materials into the vat. I'll come first in a while. When I'm done, you try it. After Qin Chu finished speaking, he took off his robe until only his shorts were left, and then jumped into the vat. Bai was dumbfounded. He didn't know what Qin Chu was shouting about, boiling people alive. After a short time, the liquid in the vat began to bubble and then boil. Seeing this scene, Bai was dumbfounded, while Qin Chu was running the nameless mental method with all his strength, absorbing the medicinal power in the medicinal bath soup to strengthen his body. He found that his body had reached a limit, so he came out after practicing for more than half an hour. You jump in and give it a try. Qin Chu said, holding Bai's shoulder. I won't come in, you can play with it yourself. Bai turned around and ran away, boiling water to boil a living person, which he didn't dare to play. Qin Chu shook his head. He felt that Bai had missed the opportunity. This was because he thought Bai was a very good friend, so he was willing to share the medicated bath soup, but he would not have done it with another person. After cultivating their vitality for a night, Qin Chu and Bai changed into clean servant robes, and then rushed towards Tianyuan Peak. Today they were going to change their books. Qin Chu had obtained 30,000 points, but Bai had not. As little as 17,000 can be exchanged for skills. A scene that had never appeared in Tianyuan sect appeared in Tianyuan Peak. Two handyman disciples with swords came to the library in a responsible manner. The two disciples on duty were still patrolling. When they saw Qin Chu and Bai, they thought about it and didn't stop them, because Elder Lu agreed and Elder Xianxia recognized that there was no need for them to be thankless. After showing their scorecards, Qin Chu and Bai entered the library pavilion. The old man who let Qin Chu enter the library opened his eyes. Just now you said he still has more than 30,000 points left. Reply to the elder, 20 points have been deducted, and he still has 30,000 points. The other handyman has more than 17,000 points. The guarding disciple who collected the points said. More than a month ago, he had 3,000 points, and now he has more than 30,000 points. Inform Elder Lu to come over. If he cheats, he will be expelled. If he doesn't cheat, it will be interesting. After the old man finished speaking, he closed his eyes. Entering the library pavilion, Qin Chu went straight to the area where Tianyuan Ju was located, and directly took the Tianyuan Ju classics in his hands. Bai chose a body law book, which required 16,000 points. Bai looked at his own points toss. After selecting the exercises, Qin Chu and Bai left the library and began to exchange the exercises. When the Tianyuan Ju was brought, Qin Chu looked at it and his expression changed. Because it was a fragment of the scroll, to be precise, what Qin Chu got was the fragment of the Tianyuan Ju. It's a broken scroll, why didn't you explain it in the introduction? Qin Chu's face was very dissatisfied. He worked so hard to get 30,000 points, but got a broken scroll. Whoever it was, would be dissatisfied. If it weren't for the broken scroll, you wouldn't be able to exchange it for 300,000 points. The old man opened his eyes after sitting cross-legged in meditation. Chapter 0012 There's a good show to watch. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. After listening to the old man's words, Qin Chu was a little depressed. No wonder the introduction was very impressive. The complete Tianyuan fragment scroll cannot be exchanged for 300,000 points. It is naturally overbearing, but the problem is the fragment scroll. Senior, let's be reasonable. When the disciples saw the Tianyuan fragmentary scroll in the library pavilion, it didn't say it was a fragment. Therefore, the disciple cannot carry this on his back. Can the disciple change it? Qin Chu looked at it. The old man said. The old man stood up and looked Qin Chu up and down. This may be the sect's mistake, but you got it, don't you think it's fate? 30,000 points is not much, and besides, this book you read it's impossible to return or exchange it, so just take it. After listening to the old man's words, Qin Chu was speechless. If he didn't give it a refund, he would be the only one to bear the blame. Don't be discouraged. For laying the foundation, the Tianyuan Ju fragment will definitely help you with your practice more than any other classics. Although it is missing, there are some annotations from the sect's sages and elders. I tell you, you have made a lot of money. The old man, looking at Qin Chu's somewhat disappointed face, he said. After exhaling, Qin Chu clasped his fists at the old man. Qin Chu thanks you, senior, for clarifying my doubts and helping me lay the foundation. This is enough. Then the old man reminded Qin Chu and Baiyu that whoever exchanged the classics belonged to the same person, and exchange was not allowed. If it was found that other classics were practiced that did not belong to the exchange, the sect would abolish the cultivation and expel the Tianyuan sect. In addition, the authentic version of the classics, it will be sent back in a month. Qin Chu and Baiyu left Tianyuan Peak and returned to the miscellaneous hall. Boss, what are the arrangements next? Let's practice steadily first. Baiyu asked, looking at Qin Chu. Are you stupid? The mission must continue. This time we change the classics. Next time we go to the treasure pavilion to change the elixirs. The elixirs and exercises are two important elements that assist the improvement of our vitality, etc. I'm calling you. Qin Chu glared at Baiyu and went to the cliff. Qin Chu first took a medicinal bath. Although his body reached its limit, he continued to nourish himself in preparation for improving his physical quality. After taking a medicinal bath, Qin Chu entered the wooden house, took out the Tianyuan fragments and began to study. The Tianyuan fragment scroll was created by a cultivator named Tianyuan. In addition to practicing magic formulas, it also contains some experiences and notes on vitality cultivation. Qin Chu turned to the last page, which was the missing part. He saw two Tianyuan sect members. Notes from the sages. The first annotator was named Xiaoyun. His annotation said that the path of cultivation after the fourth level of Tianyuan Ju is cut off, but it is best to lay the foundation. The other one was Mo Daozi's annotation. His annotation said that according to the deduction in the first chapter of Tianyuan Ju, after practicing to the fourth level, the vitality condensed by Tianyuan Ju will be very violent and the body will not be able to withstand it, so it is necessary to switch to another cultivation method. According to his opinion, the lack of the second half of the Tianyuan Ju is man-made, because continuing to practice it will hurt the body, being able to practice to the fourth level. Qin Chu could accept this result, and he would just change his technique after the fourth level. After calming down his mind, Qin Chu began to practice Tianyuan Ju. As Qin Chu moved the vitality of his dantian according to the operation method of Tianyuan Ju, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth near the cliff gathered into his body. The vitality of his dantian moved rapidly, refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into his own vitality. In the next 2 days, Qin Chu didn't leave the cabin, and he didn't touch the food that Peng placed at the door of the cabin. In the early morning of the third day, with a violent vibration in Qin Chu's dantian, his vitality cultivation reached the 6th level of Juyuan. After stabilizing his vitality, Qin Chu opened his eyes. 2 rays of light flashed through his eyes. He reached the 6th level of Juyuan. He felt the vitality rotating in his dantian. Qin Chu was very satisfied with the results of these 2 days of practice. After leaving the wooden house, Qin Chu took out his long sword and began to practice basic sword skills. When Qin Chu was practicing swordsmanship, at the door of the library pavilion, Elder Lu Yuan, who brought Qin Chu into the Tianyuan sect, was talking to the old man sitting cross-legged on the right side of the library pavilion. Uncle Master, Lu Yuan went to Qingzhou Peak to check. Those mission points were obtained by themselves. The 2 little guys have been doing missions crazily recently. Although Qin Chu has no vitality cultivation, his body is very strong. This morning, the disciple investigated from a distance and found that his body level has reached the limit of the 3rd level. His energy cultivation has also reached the 5th level of Juyuan, and he will soon break through to the 6th level of Juyuan, Lu Yuan said to the old man. I don't understand. That Baiyu is now at the late stage of the 2nd level condensing Yuan realm. Although Qin Chu has not reached the condensing Yuan realm, there is no problem for the 2 of them to join the sect. How come they became handyman disciples? The old man frowned. Frown. Uncle Master, the two of them missed the sect's apprenticeship ceremony. When they are servant disciples, they just want to find a place to eat. Recently, Qin Chu caused some trouble. Lu Yuan coughed, and the servant disciple wanted to. It's quite embarrassing to pick between the outer disciples and the inner disciples of Tianyuan sect. Why are you still hesitating? The old man looked at Lu Yuan and frowned. Then Lu Yuan talked about the conflict between Qin Chu and the disciples of Tianyuan Peak, and also said that he was the one who led Qin Chu to the miscellaneous service hall. This is nothing. The disciples of the sect are living too comfortably and lack pressure. Now the handyman disciples want to pick them. This is a wake-up call. As long as those two guys don't cheat or use tricks, everything will take its course. The old man closed his eyes after finishing speaking. Qin Chu practiced for another 2 days, and then called Baiyu to the merit hall. To their regret, there were not many tasks in the merit hall. In the past, our task completion efficiency at Qinzhou Peak was relatively low, so there were relatively few tasks. During this period, you were doing tasks more frequently and more efficiently, so you couldn't keep up with the tasks. Law Enforcement Han said, and he looked at Qin Chu, and Baiyu's eyes looked very satisfied. He felt that the sect would hold a disciple recruitment ceremony next year, and Qin Chu could directly become outer disciples without having to go through the rookie stage. Master Law Enforcement, can we go to the merit halls of other peaks to pick up missions? Qin Chu thought for a moment and asked. Yes, the sect does not stipulate that disciples of which peak can only accept tasks from which meritorious hall. Let's go. This law enforcement officer will take you to Xianxia Peak. The efficiency of tasks there is relatively low. It used to be more efficient than us, but it is not. If the business is booming, there will be more tasks, Law Enforcement Han said. No need, let's go to Tianyuan Peak and steal their mission. Qin Chu made a decision. This law enforcement officer knows about the conflict between you and them, but if you go over there to do tasks, it will be easy for them to take notice of you. It will be difficult for you to challenge their outer disciples. Han Enforcement Officer said. It's okay. I just want them to feel the pressure. There is an open war between me and them. If they bully me, I will let them have no tasks to do. Baiyu, what do you think? Qin Chu looked at Baiyu. Baiyu nodded. We will do whatever you say. Qin Chu and Baiyu left, and Law Enforcement Han followed behind. He thought there was something good to watch. Chapter 0013. Just do it and it's over. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the two handyman disciples with swords arrived at Tianyuan Peak, they attracted a group of scornful and contemptuous eyes, but Qin Chu and Baiyu didn't care. When they arrived at the entrance of the Tianyuan Peak Merit Hall, Qin Chu and Baiyu were stopped. This is the Hall of Merit, not the Hall of Miscellaneous Services. You are in the wrong place. A Tianyuan Peak disciple blocked Qin Chu and Baiyu. In the Hall of Merit, does it stipulate who is not allowed to enter? Baiyu spoke before Qin Chu could speak. The Hall of Merit is where the disciples of the Tianyuan sect do their tasks, not the handyman disciples. Remember, you are the handyman disciples. Hearing Baiyu talk back, this Tianyuan sect disciple's words were very rude. Qin Chu took out his points card and pushed it in the face of the outer disciple of Tianyuan Peak. Don't make yourself uncomfortable, get out of here. You're looking for death. After Qin Chu told him to get out of the way, the outer disciple of Tianyuan Peak didn't want to, and stretched out his hand to swipe Qin Chu's face. The handyman disciples have no status in the Tianyuan sect. It is normal for the official disciples to be beaten whenever they want. Stretching out and clasping his right hand, Qin Chu grabbed the Tianyuan Peak outer disciple's wrist, threw him to the ground with a swing of his right arm, and then raised his foot to hit his face. I hate it when people attack me, even more I hate when people try to slap me in the face. The appearance of this scene made the Tianyuan Peak disciples outside the Tianyuan Peak Merit Hall dumbfounded. The handyman disciples beat up the outer disciples violently. Is this going against the will of heaven? Do your own personal things well, and don't reach out randomly if you have nothing to do. If anyone breaks his hand with me, I will break it. Qin Chu said and entered the Hall of Merit. Qin Chu, are you eager to die now? Lin Tsang, who was preparing to take on the mission in the Hall of Merit, looked at Qin Chu with murderous intent on his face. At Qinzhou Peak, his face was stepped on by Qin Chu. I don't know where you got the confidence to be so arrogant. Didn't you become a grandson in Qinzhou Peak? Why didn't you challenge Yan Yi? Are you shouting at me, a handyman, with great authority? Looking at Lin Tsang, Qin Chu, his face was full of contempt. He looked down on people like Lin Tsang, who bullied the weak and feared the strong, and did not have the character of a warrior. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hearing the quarrel, the law enforcement officers in the Tianyuan Peak Meritorious Hall were dissatisfied. Return to the law enforcement master, we are here to do the task, but blocking the door and swearing at people are so outrageous. Qin Chu said. The law enforcement officer of the Tianyuan Peak Merit Hall stood up and looked Qin Chu up and down. As for Baiyu, he ignored it because Qin Chu was the one who took the lead. Do you know that you are a handyman disciple? The law enforcement officer of the Hall of Merit said. Master Law Enforcement, you were right, but you didn't say it completely. The handyman disciples are also disciples and can also complete tasks. Qin Chu took out his scorecard again. The law enforcement officer of the Hall of Merit was silent for a moment, then looked at the door of the Hall of Merit. Here you are, come in. Senior brother Yu, they are the two disciples of Qinzhou Peak. The tasks there have been almost completed by the two of them, so the junior brother recommended them to come here. Senior brother Yu doesn't have to feel unruly. The two of them already have the points. The book is recognized by the library, and the handyman disciples are also sect disciples, so they are right about this, Han Jihua said. Law enforcement officer Yu from Tianyuan Peak smiled. That's right. Our Tianyuan sect trains disciples based on ability and cannot discriminate based on status. If you too want to take on the task, you can take it, but you must complete it, otherwise double points will be deducted. Qin Chu and Baiyu hugged Yu Zhizhi and Han Jizhu. They were grand, so they had to respect them. This situation also made Qin Chu understand that being able to serve as a law enforcement officer does have some merit. After receiving the consent, Qin Chu and Baiyu began to scan tasks frantically. On the task bar, half of the third-level tasks were scanned by Qin Chu and Baiyu. The rest were all strange tasks, all of which were difficult to complete. Qin Chu and Baiyu would not touch such a task. When this situation occurred, confusion appeared on law enforcement Yu's face. You two boys can't mess around and take over the task. Thank you Yu for the reminder. If we fail to complete the task, we are willing to bear the consequences. Qin Chu said. When he was about to leave, law enforcement Han clasped his fists at law enforcement Yu. It's not easy for children. I don't know what enforcement is doing elsewhere, but they won't be targeted in the Merit Hall of Tianyuan Peak. Yu enforcement said to Han enforcement, and he knew what Yu enforcement meant. Han Jizhi took Qin Chu and Baiyu away from Tianyuan Peak. You two are trying to create hatred. It would be weird if others don't mess with you. Everyone in the sect will abide by the rules. Once you leave the sect, there are no restrictions. Do you understand? Understood. We can't afford to offend him. Why can't he hide? Qin Chu turned around and glanced at Tianyuan Peak, with fighting intent in his eyes. Can't he hide? Anyone who dares to trouble him will be killed directly. Noticing Qin Chu's small eyes, law enforcement Han shook his head. He knew very well that Qin Chu would not hide. There were some things he just couldn't say. When it was time to separate, Qin Chu borrowed a storage belt from Han Jihua. There were more tasks, and there were more tasks. After leaving Qinzhou Peak, Qin Chu and Baiyu entered the deserted area, and they headed to Miyun Mountain. There are many high-level monsters in Miyun Mountain, and Tianyuan sect disciples seldom set foot there, so there are many medicinal materials and the tasks are easy to complete. After walking for a while, Baiyu looked at Qin Chu. Qin Chu patted Baiyu's shoulder and signaled to continue on his way. Baiyu discovered that someone was following him. In fact, Qin Chu had discovered it a long time ago. The first one who discovered it was Han Jifa, so he said those words. Qin Chu discovered it after entering the mountainous area. He grew up in the mountain and was very sensitive to some things. There is still a little distance. There is a big tree ahead. We will hide in the tree in a while and watch my gestures. Now that they have taken action, we are done. Qin Chu whispered to Bai Yu. After advancing 100 feet, Qin Chu grabbed Bai Yu and threw it towards the big tree beside him. Then he climbed up the big tree using his hands and feet, and hid on a branch next to Bai Yu. Not long after Qin Chu and Bai Yu hid, someone appeared. It was Lin Song and another inner disciple. Seeing the two of them, Bai Yu's face showed tension. If he and Qin Chu were alone, he and Qin Chu could fight to the death, but it would be difficult for two people. The inner disciples were all at the third level of cultivation. Arriving under the big tree, Lin Song frowned. Kino, they are walking in this direction, why is there no movement? These two little trash can't run far. The man named Kino said. When Lin Song and Mu Yi were talking, Qin Chu and Bai Yu had an exchange. Qin Chu pointed to Bai Yu at the position between Lin Song and Mu Yi, then pointed at his chest and Mu Yi, and then his body straightened up from the tree. Pounced down, straight towards Kino. Kino felt the sound of wind behind him and wanted to turn around, but Qin Chu's attack speed was too fast. He jumped directly to Kino's back and clasped his neck with both hands. Bai Yu jumped to the area between Lin Song and Mu Yi. His mission was to prevent Lin Song from supporting Mu Yi. Chapter 0014 Holy Blood Activation. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Lin Song drew his sword, and Bai Yu also drew his sword and started fighting. His current task is not to let Lin Song support my damn springtail. Lin Song slashed towards Bai Yu with his sword. Bai Yu drew his sword across the crossbar. Even if he couldn't hold it, he had to carry it now. If Lin Song was allowed to support Mu Yi, he and Qin Chu would be useless. At this time, Qin Chu rushed to Mu Ye's back, wrapped his legs around Mu Ye's waist, strangled Mu Ye's neck with his right arm, and pressed his left hand on Mu Ye's head and pushed it backwards. Mai's head was tilted back by Qin Chu, and his hands did not have time to draw the sword. He could only use force to break Qin Chu's hands. Intending to break Qin Chu's hands apart, everything was in vain. Kino's hands were not as strong as Qin Chu's and they couldn't break them apart at all. Click. With a crisp sound, Mai's neck was broken by Qin Chu. After taking care of Mai, Qin Chu jumped up, unsheathed his long sword and killed Lin Song. At this time, Lin Song had already repelled Bai Yu and attacked Qin Chu. In other words, Qin Chu killed Mu Yi in time. Bai Yu, who was in the second level of condensing Yuan realm, could not withstand Lin Song. Lin Song was in the middle stage of the third level of true Yuan realm, and Bai Yu was not on the same level as him. Both of you must die. Lin Song was angry. Mu Yi came with him, but now he was killed by Qin Chu. Qin Chu supported Lin Song, and Bai Yu assisted on the side. The two of them attacked Lin Song from both sides. Lin Song was indeed very strong. Bai Yu would be knocked back every time he drew his sword. Qin Chu was not the same. He was not knocked back due to his great body strength, but every attack with the long sword would be deflected. There was another handover of weapons, and Qin Chu's long sword was deflected by Lin Song again. After deflecting Qin Chu's sword, Lin Song flicked his wrist and stabbed Qin Chu's chest with the sword. You think I'm afraid of you? Qin Chu was furious. He didn't retreat, but continued to charge forward. He would fight to the death. He was not afraid. While charging forward, Qin Chu grabbed Lin Song's sword with his left hand, and wiped the sword with his right hand towards Lin Song's neck. The long sword in his right hand was grabbed by Qin Chu. Lin Song hurriedly drew the sword, but failed. Qin Chu grabbed the long sword tightly. Then you die first. In order to force Qin Chu to retreat, Lin Song used his body strength, and the long sword slipped half a foot from Qin Chu's hand, and entered Qin Chu's chest by more than 3 inches. At this time, Lin Song also lost the chance to avoid Qin Chu's long sword, and his neck was cut off by Qin Chu's long sword. Bai Yu rushed forward, cut off Lin Song's right hand holding the sword with a sword, and then kicked Lin Song's body away. Qin Chu's left hand was bleeding, and he slowly pulled out the long sword inserted into his chest. The long sword left his body, and red gold energy appeared in Qin Chu's chest. At this time, Qin Chu felt as if there was a ball of fire in his chest, exuding strong energy. Sitting down cross-legged, using unknown body techniques, Qin Chu began to stabilize himself. Half an hour passed before Qin Chu stabilized the energy in his chest. He didn't understand what was going on, but he knew one thing. It must be the change caused by the holy blood in his body. He felt it was necessary to find some books to understand the situation. 2. What's going on with you? Bai Yu stood beside Qin Chu with a long sword in hand. He was afraid that there were others. I'm fine. I collected the resources from the two of them and threw away all the marked things. We can't stick to those things, Qin Chu said to Bai Yu. Bai Yu nodded, and then began to collect the things from Lin Song and Lin Yi, and then brought them all to Qin Chu. There were 2 storage belts, 2 storage bracelets, and 2 long swords. The sect issues storage belts to the outer disciples, and storage bracelets to the inner disciples. All their things should be inside. Bai Yu said to Qin Chu. Then Qin Chu took out the contents of the storage belt and storage bracelet. There were some elixirs, including the Ning Yuan Dan and the True Yuan Dan, which are 2nd level and 3rd level auxiliary elixirs, and some gold ingots and silver is nothing good. Be careful when using storage bracelets. Don't expose them to others. We are now handyman disciples. If someone sees a storage bracelet, and Lin Song and Mu Yi are missing, it will be troublesome. Qin Chu he gave half of the elixir and gold and silver to Bai Yu and said, Bai Yu only took 1/3 of the resources, and Qin Chu won the battle. He knew this very well, and he didn't want to take what was not his own. Looking at Bai Yu, Qin Chu didn't say anything. After getting along with him for this period of time, he already knew Bai Yu's character. After dividing the elixirs, gold and silver, Qin Chu and Bai Yu each took a storage bracelet. They could use the storage bracelet to carry things, and then put the storage bracelet into the storage belt. They also put Lin Song and Kino put away their weapons. Their weapons were Tianyuan sect fine steel long swords, which were nothing special. They were not as good as the long swords that Qin Chu got in Lu Yuan's hands. After digging a hole and burying the bodies of Lin Song and Mu Yi, Qin Chu and Bai Yu left. This incident was just an interlude. They still had to complete their tasks. If they wanted to survive in the Tianyuan sect, they had to have points. After mastering the scale and not going deep into Miyun Mountain, the danger was not great. Qin Chu and Bai Yu collected the mission items relatively smoothly, doing tasks during the day and meditating at night. Qin Chu's strength has improved linearly. Because of the support of vitality, his basic swordsmanship is no longer the same as before. Half a month later, Qin Chu and Bai Yu left the outskirts of Miyun Mountain and returned to Tianyuan sect. We will hand in the task in 2 times. Each person can take out the materials in 2 storage belts each time to hand in a task. The origin of the storage belt can be used as a shield by Han law enforcement. After handing it in once, we will return to the handyman hall. Take a moment, turn the contents out of the bracelet and hand it over again. Qin Chu said to Bai Yu. When Qin Chu and Bai Yu arrived at Tianyuan Peak, the looks they received this time were not contempt, but hostility. With the instigation of Liu's small team, all the disciples of Tianyuan Peak knew the name Qin Chu. How could they feel angry after knowing that Qin Chu was going to choose the outer and inner disciples of Tianyuan Peak? Ignoring the hostile looks, Qin Chu and Bai Yu handed over the task. Qin Chu got 5,000 points and Bai Yu got more than 3,000 points. Let's go and return the classics first. After leaving the Hall of Merit, Qin Chu and Bai Yu walked towards the library pavilion. This time, no one intercepted them. Qin Chu and Bai Yu arrived at the library pavilion smoothly. During this time, they had memorized the skills they had exchanged. When Qin Chu and Bai Yu were handing over classics, the old man sitting on the left side of the library door stood up and looked at Qin Chu with surprise in his eyes. The other man sitting on the right side of the library door, whom Qin Chu had never seen before, opened his eyes and followed him. The dead old man also opened his eyes and looked at Qin Chu. The classics are not broken. I handed them back completely. There is no problem. Xianxia was a little embarrassed by the two old guys. He felt that the eyes of the two old men were like old wolves looking at rabbits. Putting the classics towards the table, Xianxia pulled Baiyu away. So horrible. Xianxia felt that it was not a good thing to be stared at by two old guys with fire-breathing eyes. Back at the handyman hall, Xianxia took off his clothes and took a medicinal bath, leaving only his head outside the big tub, which was very comfortable. At this moment, the old man who had been sitting on the left side of the library appeared. You are very comfortable. Chapter 0015 I can't hide it anymore. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Seeing this old man, Xianxia's face was full of shock. When he was in the library, he felt that something was wrong with the old man's eyes, and unexpectedly chased after him. Are you a handyman disciple? The inner disciples don't have a good life like you. The old man walked around Xianxia's vat and then said after looking at the wooden house. Xianxia jumped out of the vat, washed himself without caring, and put on his robe directly. Being watched by the vat, he could not take a stable bath. The old man looked at the medicinal liquid in the large vat, and then looked at Xianxia. Although it is a servant's robe, it cannot hide your temperament and sharpness. In fact, Xianxia does have a sharpness and heroic spirit that ordinary teenagers don't have. He is wearing a coarse cloth robe, but his whole person is clean from the inside out. My lord, if you have any orders, just tell Xianxia. Xianxia was confused and didn't know what the old man meant by coming here. Do you know that your boy is about to die? The old man sat down on Xianxia's exclusive wooden bench in front of the wooden house. Old man, are you talking about those guys from Tianyuan Peak? I'm not afraid of them. I'll start from the outer gate later and kill them all. Xianxia glanced at Tianyuan Peak and said. The old man frowned. What's this mess? You don't know what's going on. You have the holy blood in your body and you don't have strong protection, so you're not afraid of being hacked by others and extracting your holy blood. After listening to the old man's words, Xianxia's face changed drastically, and he almost lost his balance after shaking his body. This was his secret. How could someone discover it? It seems that you know it yourself. I don't know how you hid it in the past, but now you have been exposed. Tell me what happened. With the holy blood, I don't believe you if you say you have no background. If you don't explain clearly today, then either you will jump off the cliff yourself, or I will throw you down. The old man looked at Xianxia and said. What do you call senior? Xianxia looked at the old man and asked. The old man sat up straight and said, no one has asked me my name for a long time. I am Mtlnovel, one of the supreme elders of Tianyuan sect. So it's useless for you to play any scheming with Tianyuan sect. Mtlnovel. Xianxia was stunned for a moment. Isn't this the one who left the annotation on the Tianyuan fragment? Elder Mo, the disciple did have a purpose in coming to Tianyuan sect, but there is no malicious intention. The thing is like this, the disciple's life experience is a mystery. 14 years ago, Xianxia discovered that the holy blood was in the body, and Mtlnovel in front of him knew it. There was nothing more to hide. Mtlnovel looked at Xianxia carefully. Do you know how difficult it is to deduce the secret of heaven? Why should I deduce it for you? Grass. Xianxia's mind went blank for a moment. The old guy in front of him was the elder Mo he was looking for. He could deduce the past and the future. Elder Mo, tell me, what conditions do you need? Whether it's climbing the mountain of knives or descending into the sea of fire, Xianxia, have done it. After seeing the target person, Xianxia naturally wanted to seize the opportunity. There are many people who want to go to the mountain of swords and the sea of fire for me. Disciples of the Tianyuan sect, if I shout, countless people can do it. Mtlnovel looked at Xianxia and said. Xianxia was speechless. He also knew that Mtlnovel was telling the truth. He really had nothing that could be taken seriously by others. In this vast world, with hundreds of millions of miles of territory, there are only a few families with the gift of holy blood. Even among families with holy blood, no descendant with holy blood has been born for many years. Your origin is not simple, and you are at such a muddy water, even if you jump into it thousands of times, you won't be able to stir up a single wave, Elder Mo said while looking at Qin Chu. He was shocked, but Qin Chu didn't say anything. Being able to know who Elder Mo was and where to find Elder Mo was a big gain. You shed your blood to recognize this ring as its owner. When worn, it can mask the aura of the holy blood. Do not take it off. I have something to think about. After throwing the ring to Qin Chu, Mo Daozi turned around and left the cliff. Looking at the ring in his hand, Qin Chu thought it was very beautiful. There was a small dragon on the ring connected end to end, giving it a simple and luxurious beauty. He bit his finger and a drop of blood dripped on it. The blood was absorbed by the ring as Qin Chu watched. Qin Chu felt that his mind was connected with the ring, and there was a space inside to store the ring. Qin Chu knew that this ring could not only cover up his aura, but also had space inside to hold items, but he felt that it had to be hidden well as it could easily lead to disaster. Mo Daozi returned to the library and waved the two disciples on duty at the door to go down. "Brother, what's going on?" another old man said. A few years ago, Brother Wei calculated that there would be some gains from staying here. Now the gains are here. That guy has the holy blood. This is a big crisis and a big opportunity for Tianyuan sect. Mo Daozi he spoke. The holy blood family is a giant, how could he come here? Junior brother went to check just now. There are no masters hiding around Tianyuan sect, and there is no one behind him. Another old man said. Mo Daozi shook his head. This is a guy with unknown origins. His purpose in coming to Tianyuan sect is to find a brother and to deduce his own life experience. So, he has nothing to do with the outside world anymore. It will be fine if we hide him. Another old man said. He was Ling Yunzi, another supreme leader of the Tianyuan sect. Mo Daozi glanced in the direction of the Tianyuan sect's miscellaneous hall. It's not as simple as you think, junior brother. How can he not trace his life experience? I want my brother to help him deduce it. It's not impossible, but it's not that easy. Wait for him tomorrow. Come, brother, talk to him. Qin Chu practiced his vitality all night, and practiced swordsmanship for a while, and then he and Baiyu went to the treasure pavilion to exchange for some elixirs. Qin Chu was a first-level Yuan Juding cultivator, and what he got in exchange for was Juyuan Dan. The price was not very high, with 300 points per bottle. He exchanged 3 bottles, and Baiyu exchanged 2 bottles of Yuan condensing Dan. After getting the elixir, Qin Chu and Baiyu returned to the handyman hall. When they returned to the handyman building, they saw Pang leading the handyman disciples and the official disciples of Qingzhou Peak quarreling. What's going on? Qin Chu asked. You servant disciples are too arrogant. Don't wash your socks. You all have to wash your underwear today. If you don't wash them, I'll beat you until you wash them. An outer disciple of the Tianyuan sect yelled at Qin Chu. Qin Chu dodged his body, raised his right foot and came into close contact with the outer disciple's face. Second fatty, starting from today, our handyman hall will take care of the hygiene of Qingzhou Peak and clean the sect's elders take good care of your daily life, and we don't care about the other messy affairs of the outer disciples and inner disciples. We are the handyman disciples of Qingzhou Peak, not theirs. Chapter 0016 My Territory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Next, the battle started. The outer disciples who started talking were beaten. The other outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak were naturally unwilling to do so. How could any handyman disciple beat an outer disciple? In the past, it was always the handyman disciples who were honestly beaten. Tidy, melee. Qin Chu and Baiyu took the lead, while Pang and other handyman disciples carried sticks and started to attack without showing any signs of weakness. A counterattack. Qin Chu opened the way with an old punch, and all 7 or 8 outer disciples were knocked down by Qin Chu and his handyman disciples. What are you doing? What do you want to do? The steward of the miscellaneous hall came to enforce the law. He was a middle-aged man and the management of Qingzhou Peak. Lu law enforcement, their miscellaneous services hall is going to rebel. An outer disciple who had been hit by Qin Chu's eye-sealing fist started to complain to Lu law enforcement of the miscellaneous services hall. Qin Chu stretched out his hand and tapped the outer disciple. Can't you afford it? You still want to complain? At this time, law enforcement Lu ducked out of the way and kicked Qin Chu in the butt. Be honest, kid. Tell me clearly what is going on. Regarding Qin Chu and what Qin Chu did in the miscellaneous hall, law enforcement Lu knew about it, but he did not interfere. He felt that it was good, and he supported and recognized Qin Chu's hard work and ambition. Lord Law Enforcement Master, our handyman disciples are the handyman disciples of the Tianyuan sect. They don't belong to anyone, right? Qin Chu didn't care that he was kicked, and hugged his fists at Lu Law Enforcement. Yes, all the disciples of Tianyuan sect belong to the sect, not to one person. Lu Juyuan nodded. Qin Chu looked at the few outer disciples who were beaten by him. Then here's the problem, we are the handyman disciples of the sect. We are responsible for cleaning the Qingzhou Peak, helping out in the kitchen and other places, and doing the handyman work. These are all disciples' duties, but it's unreasonable for them to ask us to wash socks and underwear. We are handyman disciples, but we are not inferior to others. That makes some sense. You have no hands or feet. Do you need me to wash your underwear? Law enforcement Lu looked at the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak were silent. They dared to challenge the handyman disciples, but they did not dare to mess with law enforcement Lu. Listen up, everyone. This is law enforcement Lu's territory. If you come here and act arrogant, I, Qin Chu, will beat you every time I see you. I dare to do it to all the inner disciples of Tianyuan Peak, and you are no exception. Don't leave yet. Are you waiting to stay for dinner? Qin Chu waved his fist at the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak. Under this situation, the few outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak could only leave in despair, but they would not let this matter go. After the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak left, law enforcement Lu turned to look at Qin Chu. Isn't this servant hall your territory? When did it become my enforcement hall's territory? Qin Chu smiled awkwardly. How dare you? The law enforcement master is not around, so I'm just taking care of things in this miscellaneous hall. It's very bloody, let's do it like this. Law enforcement Lu left. He felt that he was not too aggrieved to manage this handyman hall. Qin Chu returned to the cliff and took the Juyuan pill to start cultivating his vitality. Baiyu also went to practice, and the handyman in the handyman hall also returned to peace, but Qingzhou Peak is no longer calm. The handyman disciples are being fucked by the outer disciples. This is humiliating for the outer disciples. The inner disciples are also a little reluctant. Forget about the socks, the handyman disciples will not wash their robes. One day passed, and the outer disciples from Qingzhou Peak came. This time they were stronger, they were disciples at the late second level of the condensing Yuan realm. Tell Qin Chu's handyman to get out. The outer disciples roared at the door of the handyman's compound. There were too many disciples in Qingzhou Peak. Some of them knew that Qin Chu was not easy to mess with, but some didn't, so they came to challenge him. At this time, the handyman disciples gathered together, each with a stick in their hand, and everyone was driven to a bloody state by Qin Chu. Come here, call the head. Pang shouted to the handyman disciple. Qin Chu was practicing basic swordsmanship. When he heard the handyman disciple running over telling him the situation, he rushed to the door of the handyman compound. What kind of rhythm is this? Are you going to capture our handyman hall? Come on, are you going to fight alone or in a group? If the group fights, it will not end well. Qin Chu wiped the sweat from his forehead and said. He didn't want to fight in a group. Because the handyman disciples only rely on instinct to fight and cannot defeat the outer disciples. There's no need to fight in groups, I'm here to deal with you today. The leading outer disciple said. His name is Li Bo, and he is the leader of a team of outer disciples. Qin Chu dodged and thrust his sword straight towards Li Bo's throat. Li Bo drew his sword and blocked directly. Ding! With a crisp sound, Li Bo's long sword was shaken away. Qin Chu's long sword did not move at all and was directly pressed against Li Bo's throat. Li Bo's face turned blue. He brought his people to destroy the place, but in the end he didn't even take Qin Chu's move. With the long sword against Li Bo's throat, Qin Chu swung his left hand and struck Li Bo's right eye with an eye-sealing fist. Then he struck Li Bo's left head with the sword hilt in his right hand, knocking Li Bo unconscious. "Bai Yu, air fat, drag them in, take off the storage belt and weapons, and then tie them up." Qin Chu kicked Li Bo behind him. It was so cruel that an outer disciple at the late stage of the second-level condensation realm was taken down with just one move. However, there were still some outer disciples who were not convinced. They believed that Li Bo's capture was a coincidence, and they continued to do so. As a result, they fell one after another. The 4 people who took action were all kicked into the miscellaneous hall by Qin Chu. That's it for today. Do you dare to rush in and try? If you dare to rush, I will strip you naked and throw you into the square of Qinju Peak Hall. With a threat, Qin Chu returned to the courtyard of the miscellaneous hall. In the handyman compound, the weapons and storage belts of Li Bo and the other 4 people were removed, their hands were tied behind their backs, and several people were connected together. "Come. Apologize to me. After you apologize, you can leave." Qin Chu sat on the chair brought by Air Pang, half-assed and 1 foot on it. "You are dreaming, you are a garbage handyman disciple, why should I apologize to you?" Li Bo, who was beaten first, yelled at Qin Chu. "Second fatty, strip him naked and throw him out. He wants to be embarrassed, so give him a chance. Qin Chu really doesn't like anyone. The second fat man is very quick. He doesn't care who Li Bo is. If Qin Chu says to do it, then he will do it." It was a tragedy for Li Bo. He was stripped naked and thrown outside the handyman compound. Several other people dared not to apologize and just apologized and left. "You all listen to me, don't be a disciple of a handyman. If you want to come to the handyman hall, think about it first. If you love anyone, you will lose face." Qin Chu shouted the slogan after the matter was settled, standing in an inconspicuous place. Mo Daozi watched all this, his eyes turned blue. He waited for Qin Chu to go over and talk, but Qin Chu had a lot of fun in the handyman hall. Isn't this just asking for trouble? How many formal disciples are there in Qinju Peak? If I can't hold you down today, I won't be able to hold you down tomorrow. Chapter 00172 Shameless. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although he thought Qin Chu was irrational, Mo Daozi felt that Qin Chu was very bloody. Only those who do not agree with the status quo can change the status quo. Ignoring Qin Chu, Mo Daozi left. The disciples from the outer sect of Qinju Peak not only lost face in the servant hall, but also lost their lives. Li Bo, in particular, has simply become a shame to the outer disciples of Qinju Peak. Everyone will spit when they see him. The law enforcement officers and guardians of Qinju Peak were also discussing, and some of them commented that Li Bo was despised by others, and his humanity and moral character were low. The Li Bo incident did not make the outer disciples give up their attack on the miscellaneous hall. Every day, several groups would go to the gate of the miscellaneous hall to call for formation. They would directly confront Qin Chu and apologize to Qin Chu if they lost. The outer disciples who came to challenge were also smart. They did not bring a storage belt to fight. If they lost, they would lose. Since a failed outer disciple said that the long sword is the life of the swordsman, Qin Chu did not grab the long sword. But the loser will keep a bottle of Juyuan Dan. The battle does not last for one day, but happens every day. The inner disciples of Qinju Peak come to watch the battle. The law enforcers, the protectors, and even the elders watched the battle in the dark. Qin Chu did not refuse anyone who came, and with basic swordsmanship, he fought fiercely with a group of outer disciples from Qinju Peak. The outer disciples of Qinju Peak were very depressed, being defeated by Qin Chu one after another. Qin Chu's swordsmanship is very simple, just basic sword moves back and forth, but the outer disciples of Qinju Peak just can't break him. Qin Chu's body is powerful, and their offensive and defensive sword moves can't shake Qin Chu's rhythm. And Qin Chu's basic sword moves are often a stroke of genius. They can't hold on for a few times before they are defeated. Another outer disciple of Qin Ju Peak was defeated. He put down a bottle of Yuan Juyuan and said, "Qin Chu, I have never seen a beast like you. You are working as a handyman in the handyman hall even though you are very capable." The words of this Qin Ju Peak outer disciple echoed the thoughts of countless Qin Ju Peak outer disciples. They felt that Qin Chu was just a beast. The strength he showed now was that he was the best among the outer disciples, but now he was bullying others in the handyman hall. "What do you think I want? I want to join the Tianyuan sect as a formal disciple, but the Tianyuan sect doesn't want me. I have no choice but to go to the handyman hall to find a place to eat first. Is it easy for me?" Speaking of this, Qin Chu still frustrated, "I arrived a day late and almost didn't even have a place to eat." Many people were speechless, not only the outer disciples of Qin Ju Peak, but also law enforcement and law protectors. They felt that it was a mistake to throw Qin Chu into the miscellaneous hall. Fortunately, he was still in the miscellaneous hall. If he was taken away by other forces, then Tianyuan sect will suffer a big loss. Qin Chu and Baiyu handed over the remaining mission items and exchanged a lot of points for them. However, they did not have time to complete the mission because the challenge of the Qin Ju Peak outer disciples to the miscellaneous hall continued. What Qin Chu didn't know was that the law enforcement masters and protector masters of the outer disciples of Qin Ju Peak gave orders to their disciples. They must capture Qin Chu and use Qin Chu to sharpen themselves. Whoever captures Qin Chu will be rewarded 3,000 yuan points. This is a big prize. For Qin Chu, it was good to have pills to assist him in his training and someone to help him practice basic swordsmanship. In the early morning of this morning, Qin Chu's cultivation level improved again, reaching the 7th level of Juyuan. This was the late stage of Juyuan. It was different from before, and his combat effectiveness had improved again. After giving another violent beating to the Qin Ju Peak outer disciples who came to challenge him, Qin Chu left the servant hall and went to the Tianyuan Peak library. He had to meet Mo Daozi and see what Mo Daozi asked for. Qin Chu has met Elder Mo. When he arrived at the door of the library, Qin Chu bowed to Mo Daozi under the surprised eyes of the two disciples who were on duty to manage the scorecards. "You guys still have time to come over. Didn't you have a happy fight with the disciples from the outer sect of Qin Ju Peak?" Mo Daozi stood up. Just a small fight to hone my sword skills," Qin Chu said. "I understand, you are going to Tianyuan Peak to challenge their outer disciples and inner disciples." Elder Mo looked at Qin Chu and asked. "Yes, they are so arrogant that they even went to the Qin Ju Peak miscellaneous hall to look for trouble." "I can't bear this," Qin Chu said. Ling Yunzi, who had been meditating, stood up and said, "You can't bear it. Don't you know that you are a handyman disciple? Senior, from your words, Qin Chu feels that you look down on the handyman disciples. I have to say that the handyman disciples are also disciples of the Tianyuan sect, but they are somewhat different from the formal disciples in terms of division of labor and qualifications. Their personality is same." Qin Chu looked at Ling Yunzi and said. To look down on the handyman disciple was to look down on him, and he felt a little conflicted in his heart. Ling Yunzi was stunned for a moment. Qin Chu, a handyman disciple, actually spoke to him rudely. No one in Tianyuan sect had ever spoken to him like this in the past. In the future, you no longer want to be an outer disciple or an inner disciple. Just be your handyman. Ling Yunzi said angrily. The handyman disciples are also very good. Qin Chu didn't care anymore. Resources can be exchanged, skills can be changed, and handyman disciples can also rise. He doesn't care about the difference between handyman disciples and inner disciples. If inner disciples bully others, then done. Mo Daozi waved his hand to stop Qin Chu from saying anything more. If you want to do something with me, you must first be qualified. You should first choose the outer disciples and inner disciples of Tianyuan Peak and then talk to me. Bowing to Mo Daozi, Qin Chu turned around and left. If someone wants qualifications, he must show qualifications that make others take him seriously. Senior brother, this little guy has a bad temper. Ling Yunzi said as he looked at Qin Chu's leaving figure. Those who have a temper will be successful. This is not bad. Mo Daozi went to his futon and did it. He was still looking forward to Qin Chu. Tianyuan sect also needs such a tormenting disciple, because the current Tianyuan sect disciples are not know what stress is. Back at the miscellaneous hall, Qin Chu beat up a few outer disciples who were looking for trouble, and then returned to the cliff to continue meditating. There were still 4 months left before he could challenge the outer disciples of Tianyuan Peak. He planned to upgrade his cultivation to the 2nd level of Yuan condensation before he went there. By then he would have the confidence. Qin Chu has no habit of looking down on his opponents. If Tianyuan Peak has a more violent outer disciple, he will lose face. It was okay to lose face before, and he would fight back after losing, but now it is no longer possible. Mo Daozi has made a request. He couldn't defeat the outer disciples and inner disciples of Tianyuan Peak, so Mo Daozi would not care about his affairs. Qin Chu came out of the cliff wooden house every once in a while and defeated the Qingzhou Peak outer disciples who came to kick the gym. After winning again that day, Qin Chu threw back the Yuan Wandan left by the outer disciple of Qingzhou Peak. I'm going to be more generous this time and won't ask for the battle trophies. I'll go back and tell the person who informed me about the challenge. If you want to challenge me, Qin Chu, bring me the Yuan Ning Dan. If you don't want the Juyuan Dan, I'll use my weapons and take off my clothes. Shameless. The thoughts in the minds of all the onlookers are, what does it mean to be grand? It was obvious that Qin Chu had too many Juyuan pills and couldn't use them all, so he planned to grab high-end products. Chapter 0018 Juyuan 8th Level. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Qin Chu wanted to rob the Ning Yuan Dan, the momentum of the Qingzhou Peak outer disciples' crazy challenge to the miscellaneous hall has eased. After all, they all need the Ning Yuan Dan. If they challenge Qin Chu without the confidence, they will lose resources and affect their own rise. Qin Chu works hard every day to practice. With the help of resources, all he needs is hard work. He meditates to cultivate his vitality. During the day, Qin Chu practices basic swordsmanship. When he first got the basic swordsmanship, Qin Chu felt helpless, but with practice and actual combat, Qin Chu felt that the basic swordsmanship was not bad. When he communicated with Baiyu joked that the basic swordsmanship was the sword with the longest inheritance. No matter which sword manual has a history, it cannot be compared with the basic swordsmanship. It must be reasonable for it to be passed down for countless years. For Qin Chu, if the effect is strong, then he should continue to practice. If he can increase his combat effectiveness and defeat his opponents, that is good swordsmanship. Knowing that Qin Chu was a tough nut to crack, there were no rookies among the outer disciples from Qingzhou Peak who came to challenge Qin Chu. They were all the best in the 2nd level. This gave Qin Chu a chance to train himself. Every battle was a challenge for him. It is said that it has benefited a lot. Qin Chu remained standing in the miscellaneous hall, which was a mark of shame for the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak, and also became the driving force for the rise of the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak. That day Baiyu found Qin Chu and said, "Boss, give me a chance to practice. If they want to fight, I will block them first. I can't block them anymore. How about you take action again?" "Okay, then you go and block it." Qin Chu nodded. During this period of time, he was taking the Juyuan pill and practicing. His energy increased very quickly. He had reached the peak of the 7th level of Juyuan. After settling down, he could move toward Juyuan. Level 8 impact also requires some quiet time. With Qin Chu's consent, Baiyu stood at the door of the handyman compound to fight. Qin Chu refused to fight and arranged for other handyman disciples to fight. This made the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak very dissatisfied. They were looking for Qin Chu, and not just any handyman disciple was worthy of their attention. Faced with the dissatisfied looks of the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak, Baiyu was very angry. "Where do you get your sense of superiority? Qin Chu didn't destroy your sense of superiority, right? Then I will continue to fight." this is the Ningyuan Dan, whoever wins gets it. If you lose, if you don't leave the Ningyuan pill, then I'm sorry, but leave the weapon and take off your robe, and get out. You really don't know who you are. An outer disciple from Qingzhou Peak got angry and drew his sword to fight. The result was that after a few rounds, Bai Yu's long sword was pressed against his chest. The few outer disciples who came on stage next were no match for Bai Yu. Listen up, the assistant hall is not something you can manipulate at will. If you want to fight Qin Chu, you can. If you defeat me, you can challenge him. Bai Yu put his long sword into its sheath and collected the winning Ningyuan pill. Stand up. The outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak were speechless. They were talking nonsense about the assistant hall. Qin Chu made the faces of the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak fall to the ground. Now Bai Yu came out, the law enforcement and Dharma protectors who taught the outer disciples at Qingzhou Peak were also troubled. They didn't understand how this year's disciple recruitment ceremony was held. The two ruthless young men did not enter the formal disciple sequence and both ran to the miscellaneous hall. How is the result? It is said that new disciples who are new to the entrance and are still in the assessment period can't win even the old disciples of the outer sect. This is not a slap in the face, what is this? It took 3 days for Qin Chu to raise his Yuan Qi cultivation to the 8th level of Juyuan as he wished, feeling the vitality flowing in his dantian. Qin Chu was very satisfied. With the vitality flowing into the long sword, the power of the swordsmanship increased a lot. Qin Chu's medicinal bath is still going on, and Qin Chu is also practicing basic swordsmanship continuously. After practicing basic swordsmanship that day, Qin Chu changed into a clean coarse robe and came to the handyman compound. Bai Yu ran over and thrust several bottles of pills into Qin Chu's hand. What are you doing? Qin Chu looked at Bai Yu in confusion. Winner, I have fought more than a dozen times in the past few days and won some Yuan Ning Dan. I will give you some. Bai Yu's face was full of excitement. His results in the past few days were very good. If you win, it's yours. You can keep it. Qin Chu smiled. He still admired Bai Yu's magnanimity. Bai Yu shook his head. Everyone comes to challenge you. I fight based on your reputation, so you take these. I have more here. After thinking for a moment, Qin Chu put away the bottles of elixirs in his hand. Qin Chu originally wanted to fight a few times, but unfortunately, no one came to challenge today. After thinking for a while, Qin Chu waved his hand and called Air Pang to his side, and then took out some Yuan Juden. Although the disciples of the miscellaneous hall are not very qualified, they are not incapable of practicing. Take these Yuan Juden and give them to me. Everyone will share a point. If you can cultivate a good foundation, you will have the opportunity to become a formal disciple in the future. Remember, no deductions are allowed. Boss, don't worry, I won't do it. I've changed my mind and I haven't bullied anyone recently. Pang was a little embarrassed because he was very aggressive towards other handyman disciples in the past. I know you have changed, so I gave you the elixir. Qin Chu patted Air Pang on the shoulder. After waiting for a while, no one came to challenge. Qin Chu looked at Bai Yu and said, I plan to go on a mission. Will you stay and fight, or will you go with me? Bai Yu hesitated. He wanted to stay and fight, but also wanted to do the mission with Qin Chu. He didn't know how to choose. Fighting can make people progress. Just because there is no fighting, I plan to do tasks and practice actual combat. If you stay, you can prove yourself. We can't let those outer disciples come to our handyman hall to show off their power. Qin Chu looking at the hesitant Bai Yu, he said. After listening to Qin Chu's words, Bai Yu nodded. After the explanation was given, Qin Chu came to the Hall of Merit. Arriving at the task release board, Qin Chu found that there were not many new tasks. The tasks per month are limited, so the tasks at Qingzhou Peak have been almost completed. Seeing Qin Chu's confused eyes, Law Enforcement Han explained. Thank you, Mr. Law Enforcement, for clarifying my doubts. I'll leave these to our Qingzhou Peak disciples. Qin Chu will go to Tianyuan Peak. Qin Chu hugged his fists at Han Law Enforcement and left the Hall of Merit. watching Qin Chu leave, law enforcement Han's eyes fell on the outer disciples and inner disciples of Qingzhou Peak in the Hall of Merit. Are you feeling pressure? If you feel pressure, you have to work hard. If someone is good at it, there is a reason why they can do it. Han Jihua, this guy is an anomaly and should not appear among the handyman disciples. An outer disciple said with a grimace. Law enforcement Han didn't say anything. He also felt that what the outer disciple said was reasonable. It was indeed a bit unfair for the outer disciple of Qingzhou Peak to be hit in the face. It doesn't matter, these are all internal competitions at Qingzhou Peak at the moment. The outer disciples are embarrassed, but the opposite is the competition in the handyman hall. Now it depends on whether he can pick the outer disciples of Tianyuan Peak. That is what really matters. The face of our Qingzhou Peak. An inner disciple of Qingzhou Peak said. Chapter 0019 Genius Disciple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Many of the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak are helpless. Bai Yu is indeed difficult to deal with, but there is some gap between him and Qin Chu. Facing Qin Chu, they had a strong sense of powerlessness and could not be defeated at all. They wanted to see the next trend. If Qin Chu could defeat the outer disciples of Tianyuan Peak, that would be no problem. They would accept the shame. If not, then even if they fight in a group, they still have to knock Qin Chu down, otherwise the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak will have to bear the word shame. Qin Chu came to Tianyuan Peak, and under the hostile eyes of all the disciples of Tianyuan Peak, he took over the task, and he took over a large area. After taking over the mission, Qin Chu left the Hall of Merit, but he couldn't leave at this time. Lu Zhe led a group of people to block his way out. What's wrong? You don't dare to wait for me to challenge, and you want to take action now. Looking at Lu Zhe, Qin Chu reached out and touched the handle of the long sword. He might not be a match for Lu Zhe and others, but he would definitely not sit still and wait for death. Lu Zhe looked at Qin Chu with naked murderous intent. Her humiliating incident at Qingzhou Peak had spread in Tianyuan Peak. Many people did not say it, but they were very dissatisfied in their hearts, dissatisfied with Yanag Zhe's arrogance. It's okay to be arrogant and domineering in Tianyuan Peak, but he didn't have the shame to go to Qingzhou Peak to cause trouble, but was beaten in the face, and caused trouble to Tianyuan Peak. You deserve to die. Yanagisawa pulled out the sword. I know you want to kill me, but do you dare? Qin Chu looked at Lu Zhe with contempt. It's okay to cut off one of your arms and one of your legs. Liuza raised his long sword. She wanted to kill Qin Chu, but due to the sect's rules, she couldn't. However, she could make Qin Chu disabled. First, she could make Qin Chu disabled. Let out a bad breath. At this time, law enforcement, you walked out of the Hall of Merit. Lu Zhe, if you take action today, Tianyuan Peak will always bear the shame of not being able to accept the challenge of Qingzhou Peak's handyman disciples. Although I am dissatisfied with you for causing trouble, I will not. Don't say anything. It's normal to be arrogant when you have strength, but now, you have disappointed this law enforcement officer. Yanagisawa, you are shameless. Tianyuan Peak still needs face. A woman wearing a white skirt appeared and looked directly at Yanagisawa. Seeing this woman, Yanagisawa's expression changed, and he bowed and said, I have met my uncle and senior sister. Qin Chu, right? I hope you can defeat the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak. When you challenge the inner disciples, I will be waiting for you. Shang Shuyu, a woman in a white skirt, said. There was a coldness in her beautiful eyes, and her black hair was floating. Qin Chu felt that Shuyu was really beautiful. Not to mention her beauty, she also had a temperament, a slim figure, and her whole body exuded infinite temptation. If you look again, I will dig out your eyes. Noticing Qin Chu's eyes, an inner disciple of Qingzhou Peak cursed. I'm sorry. Everyone loves beauty. I just looked at her twice. Wait for me. I will come to Tianyuan Peak to challenge you soon. Qin Chu said after retracting his eyes. Shang Shuyu glanced at Qin Chu, waiting for you. After turning around and leaving the entrance area of the meritorious hall, Qin Chu turned around and waved to Shang Shuyu. This made the disciples of Tianyuan Peak want to kill him immediately. Xianxia was the goddess of Tianyuan Peak, and Qin Chu's despicable look was blasphemous. "Uncle Shang, aren't you going to break through and become a core disciple?" Law enforcement. You looked at Xianxia. Xianxia slightly arched his hands towards Yu Jianzhu. This disciple has been practicing a skill recently. He plans to consolidate his foundation and then attack the 4th level spiritual realm. You are an outstanding disciple of our Tianyuan Peak and even the entire Tianyuan sect. You cannot delay your cultivation path just because of a moment of fighting spirit. Yu Zhifa said to Xianxia. Once again, Xianxia turned and left, ignoring Lu Zai. Qin Chu left Tianyuan Peak, walked along the edge of Qingzhou Peak, directly entered the deserted area, and started his mission journey. This time he took on more missions. He planned to do more missions in exchange for points. Points are a good thing in Tianyuan sect, which can be exchanged for any skills and weapons. Moreover, he also wants to practice basic swordsmanship through actual combat. Watching Qin Chu leave, Lu Zai's face was full of hatred. Because of Qin Chu, she became the laughing stock, and even made Xianxia give her an ugly look. Although she was a disciple of the 3rd elder, her status in Tianyuan Peak was there is a world of difference between Xianxia and Xianxia. Xianxia entered the profession 3 years later than her, but at the beginning of this year she reached the peak of the 3rd order True Yuan realm, which is much faster than her cultivation speed. She started as an outer disciple and then to the inner disciple. Xianxia is the leader of the competition among the sect disciples every year. In the words of the master of Tianyuan Peak, Xianxia's cultivation talent is astonishing, and what's even more terrifying is his fighting talent. Some people said they saw Lin Cong and Mu Yi leaving with Qin Chu and others. Now that Lin Cong and Mu Yi are gone, that bastard Qin Chu might have plotted against him. Let's go out and look for him. After suppressing his anger, Lu Zai said. Impossible, that guy Qin Chu can just fight with the outer disciples, but he is far behind Lin Cong and Mu Yi. A man said, he was Lu Zai's follower Lu Yun. This Qin Chu is very insidious. You have to be cautious in everything. Lu Zai did not dare to underestimate Qin Chu anymore. At the door of the library, Lu Yuan was talking to Mtlnovel and Ling Yunzi. 2 junior uncles. The origin of the handyman named Qin Chu is unknown. That Bai Yu is from the Bai family. He committed something at home and escaped from the Bai family. Lu Yuan said, during this period of time, I investigated Qin Chu and Bai Yu. Bai Yu was okay, but Qin Chu was blank. There is no need to check. Now that we have come to Tianyuan sect, we are the people of Tianyuan sect. Let them do whatever they want. If they are not enthusiastic, they will waste their youth. Mtlnovel said. Qin Chu entered the outskirts of Miyun Mountain, searching for the medicinal materials as he moved forward. His medicinal bath soup was not very effective, so he wanted to make a new one. When he met a monster, Qin Chu didn't back down and started to fight directly. His swordsmanship was very sharp. Although it was a basic swordsmanship, there were no flaws in one sword after another. Some monsters couldn't withstand him at all. Attack and kill. With a storage belt, a storage bracelet, and a storage ring, Qin Chu can easily collect things and just throw them directly into the storage space. At night, Qin Chu took Juyuan Dan and meditated to cultivate his vitality. Some time ago, he fought with the outer disciples of Qingzhou Peak and won a lot of Juyuan Dan. After he had enough to cultivate to the 2nd level of Yuan condensation realm, he had extra. He gave air pang. Feeling the improvement in the vitality of his dantian, Qin Chu was very satisfied. He enjoyed the pleasure of improving his cultivation. After practicing until dawn, Qin Chu continued to move forward. He felt that if he continued like this, he would soon reach the 9th level of Juyuan. At that time, he could study the 2nd level of impact, and the 2nd level was the standard for the outer disciples of Tianyuan sect. Chapter 0020 The True Meaning of Swordsmanship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As he continued to advance, Qin Chu had more and more supplies in his storage space, and his swordsmanship became more and more proficient. Qin Chu felt that Bai Yu was right. Countless years had passed and basic swordsmanship had not been eliminated, which meant it had wonderful uses. What he didn't know was that basic swordsmanship was the foundation of all swordsmanship. Qin Chu was excited when he was walking that day. He smelled the aroma of medicine and a faint fishy smell. Following the direction of the smell, Qin Chu came to the target location. He saw a snow dragon flower in full bloom. Although snow dragon flower was not the medicinal material he needed, Qin Chu knew that this kind of snow dragon flower was very rare. When he was living in the mountains, the old man mentioned snow dragon flower and said it was the main ingredient for refining the Qingxin pill. Just when Qin Chu was about to collect snow dragon flowers, the ground began to shake and the fishy smell became stronger. Qin Chu's feet trembled, and his body fluttered back. He almost ignored that wherever there is a genius treasure, there must be a guardian. For such a rare medicinal material as snow dragon flower, it would be strange if no monsters take over it. When Qin Chu retreated, a huge creature appeared. It was a four-legged snake with a green line on its back and snow-white other areas, snow-green dragon snake. Extremely poisonous monsters are relatively rare. At this time, Qin Chu and the snow-green snake looked at each other. The snow-green snake was dissatisfied with Qin Chu entering its territory and wanted to hunt Qin Chu. Qin Chu wanted the snow dragon flower, and of course it was the snow-green snake who guarded the snow dragon flower first. But the snow dragon flower is formed by absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Whoever has the opportunity belongs to whom, regardless of who arrives first. During the confrontation, the snow azure dragon snake's body trembled, its four claws exerted force, and it jumped up to attack Qin Chu. Qin Chu exerted force with his feet and retreated, avoiding the most tyrannical point of the snow azure dragon snake's attack. Then he unsheathed his long sword and stabbed the snow azure dragon snake in the head. Ding! Qin Chu's sword struck the snow azure dragon snake's forehead, making a crisp sound. The snow azure dragon snake's attack was blocked, and Qin Chu was also hit by the snow azure dragon snake and kept retreating. Qin Chu's body was strong, and the snow azure dragon snake was also the same. Its body was strong enough, so it knocked Qin Chu back with one impact. Looking at the four cyan circles on the back of the snow azure dragon snake's neck, Qin Chu determined that the snow azure dragon snake in front of him was a fourth-level monster, and its combat power exceeded him by a lot. Retreat. After exhaling, Qin Chu gave up retreating and rushed forward. He chose to continue. With the snow azure dragon snake's second attack, Qin Chu was repulsed again. However, Qin Chu slashed with his long sword and began to fight back, fighting with the snow azure dragon snake. The snow-green dragon snake has a huge body, but is very flexible. With its four claws, it can always block Qin Chu's long sword attacks. Of course, its attacks are also neutralized by Qin Chu's long sword. The battle was fierce. Trees were knocked down, rocks were shattered, and blood stains appeared on Qin Chu's body. They were not caused by the direct attack of the snow azure dragon snake, but were scratched by the energy carried by its four claws when attacking. Third-level cultivators and monsters can release energy, and the snow azure dragon snake has this ability. After another head-on collision, Qin Chu was repulsed, and he and snow azure dragon snake looked at each other again. Retreat? The same question came to Qin Chu's mind again. The snow-green dragon snake is too powerful and it is difficult to defeat him. But if he retreats now, he is afraid. When facing monsters, you cannot be afraid. You should use your sword and use your sword, no matter how strong the opponent is. As soon as the long sword was unfolded, Qin Chu's aura changed. It was not a change in cultivation, but a change in mentality and aura. The long sword in his hand became shiny and trembled slightly. Qin Chu and the snow azure dragon snake fought together again, but this time Qin Chu's long sword caused great damage to the snow azure dragon snake. Its claws were chopped off by Qin Chu. The snow azure dragon snake no longer dared to confront Qin Chu head-on. After seizing the upper hand, Qin Chu felt that he had realized something invisibly. The long sword was like a part of his body. After cutting off the snow azure dragon snake's left claw with a sword, Qin Chu moved to the blind spot where the snow azure dragon snake was attacking. Then he dodged and landed on the snow azure dragon snake's back. He then held the sword with both hands and pointed towards the snow azure dragon snake's head. Insert it where the head and body are connected, then fix the body with your right hand, punch the back of the snow azure dragon snake's head with your left hand, then press with your right hand, pierce the snow azure dragon snake's body with the long sword, and stab the snow azure king snake along the neck area. Into his head, the snow azure dragon snake began to struggle, but Xianxia drew his sword and retreated. He knew that the snow azure dragon snake's head was damaged and it was just struggling now. Swinging the long sword, Xianxia practiced basic swordsmanship, looking for the feeling just now. Using basic sword skills, Xianxia entered a state of selflessness. As time passed, his aura and the charm of his sword skills changed, becoming extremely sharp. 2 hours later, with the sound of a sword chant, Xianxia opened his eyes, and then burst out laughing, because his swordsmanship had improved and reached the sword spirit realm. The so-called sword spirit realm means that the soul and the long sword are one. Swordsmanship has its own style. With the sword spirit realm as the foundation, the power of any sword technique will increase a lot. Although the basic swordsmanship books in the early Qin dynasty are simple, they have many introductions to the stages of swordsmanship. There are very few people who practice swordsmanship and understand the realm of sword spirit. There is only 1 in 10,000. This is a realm of the soul, which is better than the sword intention and sword spirit. The realization of the soul is much more difficult. It requires talent and many opportunities. It cannot be achieved through forced cultivation. At the same time, the sound of swords also came from Tianyuan sect Tianyuan Peak, and then countless Tianyuan Peak disciples rushed to the martial arts field where the inner disciples practiced. In the martial arts field, there was a woman dancing with a sword. The sword energy was floating and her momentum was flying. Juyuan came, and so did Tianyuan Peak Master, Sword Intention. Unexpectedly, after hundreds of years, our Tianyuan sect once again has a genius who has mastered the true meaning of the sword under the age of 20. Senior brother, I have to say that Xianxia's swordsmanship talent is indeed the strongest among the Tianyuan sect in hundreds of years. Juyuan said, while talking. Juyuan thought of Xianxia. He felt that Xianxia was very good, but compared with Xianxia who understood the true meaning of swordsmanship, he was still a big step behind. In Mian Mountain, Xianxia practiced for a whole day in order to stabilize the sword spirit realm. After thoroughly studying the sword spirit realm, Xianxia collected the snow dragon flower, carried the head of the snow azure dragon, and dragged the body of the snow azure dragon snake towards the Tianyuan sect. The snow azure dragon snake was too big, let alone a reserve. Even his storage ring couldn't fit in it, so he had to drag it back with the strap. In the Xianxia Peak handyman compound, Baiyu was facing the challenge from the outer disciples of Xianxia Peak. He was in a very unhappy mood because the outer disciples of Tianyuan Peak also came to watch the battle. They even said that Xianxia, a genius disciple of Tianyuan Peak, after understanding the true meaning of swordsmanship, Xianxia would be beaten into a dog if he challenged the inner disciples of Tianyuan Peak. Does Baiyu feel good about this? No matter who the other party was, he felt that Xianxia was the best.